admissions. You want to take one?
So with the application review process here at NYU, it is very involved, and every student is being reviewed by not just one person, but by a committee process.
The first thing I look at are the high school transcripts. I'm looking to see what kind of grades you got. Did you challenge yourself by taking rigorous courses? Kind of getting a sense of how you performed in the context of your high school.
Now, we call it a comprehensive review because your transcript alone, your GPA, is not a decision. Neither are your standardized testing scores. So we really need to look at the whole application when making a decision.
So first, I'm looking at your academics. Then I get the sense of you in every other aspect. So I'm looking at the letters of recommendation, I'm looking at your engagement, and then my final part that I look at, and is probably my favorite part, are going to be your essays. So your common application essay, and then your Why NYU essay.
When writing the NYU essay prompt, there is a magic formula.
There's no formula.
And that magic formula typically is, why is NYU a good fit for you? Hence the question, why NYU?
There's no trick essay that is going to just pull at our heartstrings and make us admit you right off the bat.
So this is really the opportunity for you to show us that you've done your research. Many of you have been interested in NYU as early as elementary school. Some of you claim kindergarten. I don't know about that quite so much. But this is really your chance to say, hey, I've been to campus, I've met these professors, I've looked at your website and learned about these new classes that I really want to take when I'm there.
I think there's this idea, again, that you have to sound like an adult, that you have to sound like a 30-year-old person who already went through college in the essay. No, it can be fun. I've read essays where students wrote a poem instead of an essay because they love poetry and they want to be a creative writing major, and that felt like the student. You know, I got a sense of who that person was. There were students who talked about, you know, this one experience in their life that really shaped them, and that's always great to hear. Another student kind of talked a little bit more about what they were excited for the future. You know, high school's coming to an end and what's going to be happening coming up.
But at the end of the day, we want to be able to identify what you're trying to tell us. So whether that's that you're adventurous, or you take initiative, or that you're empathic, we really want to get a sense of what it is that you want us to know. So one of my favorites from last year was a student from Colorado who wrote about, you know, traditions of cooking food within her own family, specifically around grits, and really played on grits and grit to talk about her own resilience. So I thought that was a creative way of really getting one specific sense of who she is across, while also tying it into a fun anecdote about her life and family.
So we do read a lot of applications, which also means that we go through a lot of essays. And as you can imagine, everyone wants to think that I think that their essay is different or unique, but you read so many that a lot of them do sound the same. And I think that some of the things that for me at least have stood out when reading applications is students who really dive into their own passions. So I read one particular essay where a student was really into photography. He talked about how photography was sort of an escape for him, a way for him to really connect with art, and a way for him to sort of display some of his identities that he didn't feel comfortable displaying in other ways. And I thought that that showed me a lot about what this student cared about, what he was all about, and he wanted to major in photography, which I thought tied in everything together. So he was not only telling me about his interest in the major that he wants to go in for, but he was also telling me about something that he really cares about and how it relates back to him. And so I think that those are the type of essays that always are the most important, or just tell us more about what the student really cares about. A huge turnoff for me is when you start your Why NYU with lyrics about New York.
I'm sure you will hear this advice all the time, but truly, don't tell us about how you want to hang out in Central Park and go to Broadway shows. Yes, we offer discounted tickets to that, pretty much everything except Hamilton. But really, we want to get a sense of why NYU is going to specifically benefit you and develop you into the young person that you want to be.
I have read so many essays where it's just like Taylor Swift's like, "Welcome to New York, it's been waiting for me" type of thing.
Some of the common mistakes or missteps that I typically see on applications have to do with that simple thing we learn very young in school called grammar. Even sometimes with the Why NYU, I see that students did not give as much time and focus to checking their spelling and grammar as they did on the main college essay.
Make sure you actually talk about the school that you're applying to. You could not believe the amount of times that I've read many other universities in that section. So make sure that you're proofreading your essay, because we see everything and we remember everything.
You know, I like the song, it's a fine song, but I really don't need to see that in your essay.
So there are some ways to apply specifically undecided, but if you don't know precisely what it is that you're interested in, we know that you're interesting people with passions and exciting things that make you tick. So tell us just about some of them. You don't need to lay out everything that you're excited about, but give us a bit of a sense of what's exciting you and what you've been thinking about lately.
But if you are truly undecided, you are like, Joel, I don't know if I want to be a teacher or if I want to go into social work, or maybe I want to do nursing, or maybe I do want to go into journalism. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you is our core program. It's the Liberal Studies core program, and it is a 2-year liberal arts curriculum that allows students to transition into another school after your sophomore year.
So we really want you to be able to choose the test that works best for you at NYU. We have something called a test flexible policy, which means that while we accept the SAT or the ACT as our core tests, absolutely, you can also, to fulfill our testing policy, submit 3 AP scores, 3 SAT subject tests, or potentially a full IB diploma if you're taking an IB curriculum. Really, what we do that for is because we understand that students have different levels of access to these testing programs throughout the world and throughout the country, and also because we want you to be able to put your best foot forward in the process.
My tip for you all is to realize that admissions counselors cannot unsee anything. So we have to take into consideration everything that you send to us. So use that flexible testing policy to send us your strongest test scores and your strongest academics. For my artistic students out there, testing is optional if you are required to submit a portfolio. And we mean optional. So if you want to send testing and it's really, really strong, go ahead. If you're unsure to send testing, trust your gut and do not send us that testing.
And there are numerous tests, essentially from a bunch of different countries that we'll accept. You can find a full list of that on our website. So if you are wondering, I took this test in this specific country, does that count? We've listed all of that online, and you just have to pick the country and it'll show you what tests we accept from that region.
So a student can take international opportunities in a variety of ways at NYU, and I think I've been remiss in what I've been talking about for the past couple of minutes, because I've really been focused on NYU New York. And that's not our only campus in the NYU family. We actually have 3 degree-granting campuses, NYU Abu Dhabi and NYU Shanghai and NYU New York. So the first question you'll actually be asked on the common application is, where do you want to spend your 4 years of undergraduate education? And that's really the first time you get a sense of how incredibly global and international we are as an institution, where you can spend your 4 years at NYU New York, but you can also receive a degree from our Abu Dhabi or our Shanghai campuses.
I think a lot of students think that if they mark down all 3 campuses, then it increases their chances of getting into their top choice. And that's really not the case, right? Because essentially you'll only be offered admission to 1 campus, and you are considered for your first choice first, and they're sort of reviewed independently from one another. But essentially you're only going to get an offer for 1 campus. And then we get so many angry phone calls, and literally angry phone calls from students and parents come decision time that are like, I don't understand why I was admitted to my 2nd or 3rd choice campus. I don't want to be there. And it's like, well, you shouldn't have listed it down if you didn't want to be there. So I do think it's really important that you're not just putting things for the sake of putting things, but that you're actually interested in that campus.
For example, students applying to the New York City campus, you have the opportunity to apply to the Liberal Studies core program, where you can actually spend your first year at one of our study away sites. These sites would include our campuses in DC, in Florence, in Paris, in London, and most recently Madrid as well. So just imagine that as a first-year student, you are away from the main campus, but still a part of that community because what you will realize is that no matter where in the world you are, you will have that NYU experience, whether it's your NYU ID getting you into the facilities or your electronic devices automatically logging on to the NYU Wi-Fi. The world has seriously become our campus over the last few years, and you will experience that no matter where you are.
Liberal Studies core program is great for those undecided students. Maybe you spend your first year in London because they offer a lot of econ electives that you can participate in while you're studying away there. So from your first day at NYU, it can be a global experience through the first year away program or through our 3-degree granting campuses. That is a question I get a lot. How do you actually get into NYU? So the first step in this process is to ignore everything that you see on the internet. It is usually incredibly dated and people lie on the internet. Shocking. So I really wouldn't trust anything that you see on there unless it's really coming from NYU and our own website.
NYU gets one of the highest numbers of applications of any private school here in the United States. Last year, we received close to 85,000 applications. So if you really want to stand out in an application pool that large, you're only going to do that by being yourself. So when it comes to parts of the application like the essay, the letters of recommendation, the best thing you can do is really spend some time on these personal aspects. When it comes to your GPA, your test scores, those things are already set in stone. So unless you've created a time machine, which if you did, write about it in your essay, there's no way for you to go back and undo those moments in your application process. But what you do have control over are those personal tidbits, like I mentioned before. So really, tell us who you are, tell us why you want to be here, and we will listen.
So we want to see the full picture of what you do, whether that is taking on family responsibilities, whether it's a part-time job outside of school, if you are, choreographing dances for a local youth group. Tell us all of that. It doesn't just have to be the traditional sort of leadership roles in a high school. There's no secret to putting together the perfect extracurricular profile. Having 10 disparate activities that you've engaged with throughout a couple of years in high school is wonderful. It's also wonderful to see, deep involvement in 4 to 5 activities that you've done for 4 years that are focused maybe on one specific area.
I'm not still being recorded, right?
No.
Great.